Have you ever wondered why dismissive avoidants, who are people who seem to be closed off emotionally, often end up in these intense relationships with people who seem just as afraid of intimacy as they are? See, there's a reason for that, and it might surprise you. In today's video, we're talking about that magnetic but messy connection between a dismissive avoidant and a fearful avoidant. Why do these two types of attachment styles often find each other? Why does it feel so intense? And more importantly, why does it usually end up in heartbreak, confusion, and often ghosting? By the end of this video, you'll understand the psychological wiring behind this dynamic, the hidden forces that pull them together, and what it takes, if anything, for it to work out long term. First, I want to talk about the two types of attachment styles so we don't have any confusion here, because we tend to have a lot of that confusion when it comes around these two attachment styles. A dismissive avoidant is someone who values independence above everything else. They were often raised in environments where emotions were minimized, dismissed, or even punished. So as adults, they struggle with closeness, and intimacy feels like a threat to their autonomy. When things get too emotional or vulnerable, they shut down or they pull away. Just like I talked about before, you'll see the ghosting, you'll see long silences, or you'll see flat emotional responses via text message, or sometimes even in person. Now, fearful avoidants, they're a different beast entirely. Their style is also known as the disorganized attachment. It's a mix of both anxious and fearful avoidant traits. Fearful avoidants want love, connection, and intimacy. They crave that deep emotional bond, but the moment they start to get too close to someone, they panic. But it's usually short-lived because they can activate, unlike the dismissive avoidant. Their fear of being hurt, rejected, or abandoned kicks in. And so they sabotage. Usually they push people away just as quickly as they pull them in. One runs from closeness and the other one runs towards it until they freak out. But beneath the surface, they have something powerfully in common. And that thing that they share is the very thing that hooks them. That thing that makes them so magnetic toward each other. The people that can vouch for me on this information is the people who's ever been in this type of dynamic. You know that it usually doesn't feel like a casual relationship. It feels very intense. It feels like, soulmates or fate or whatever you want to call it. It's something that really makes it hard for you to quit. The dismissive avoidant is often drawn to the fearful avoidant's emotional depth. Even though it seems very messy, the fearful avoidant brings a kind of passion and vulnerability that the dismissive avoidant secretly longs for, but is too afraid to express themselves. And because fearful avoidants tend to lead with intensity at the beginning of a relationship, the dismissive feels special, they feel desired, and they feel seen. I often talk about in other videos about how a certain type of attachment style can feel like the dismissive avoidance antidepressant. But on the other side of that, the fearful avoidant is drawn to the dismissive's calm, cool demeanor. The dismissive avoidant often comes off as stable, in control, and emotionally safe. To a fearful avoidant, this seems like a safe haven until you get deeper into that relationship. I personally think that this is more of a trauma bond type of dynamic, because what starts out feeling safe and exciting, it quickly turns into a trauma bond because neither person feels truly secure. Both are constantly on edge. The fearful avoidant worries a lot about will the other person leave them, and the dismissive worries will they need to, give too much of themselves in that relationship. The fearful avoidant tends to chase when they feel rejected. They seek reassurance, attention, or emotional closeness, but the dismissive avoidant are often triggered and their alarm bell goes off. It feels like pressure, like there's some type of invasion of their emotional space. So what they do is they withdraw. They withdraw emotionally, physically, and sometimes they withdraw completely. And when all of this starts to happen, the withdrawal triggers the fearful avoidance abandonment wound. So what do? They escalate, they text more, they become more impatient, they panic, and that pushes the dismissive avoidant even further away. If you've been watching this channel long enough, you'll know that this cycle repeats over and over and over again until both people are exhausted, confused, and usually blaming each other. But what they're really dealing with is an unresolved attachment trauma. And this is what makes the dynamic so addictive. It's not just love, it's fear, it's relief, it's rejection, it's reconnection, all tangled together. It's the nervous system getting hooked on this unpredictability. It's the trauma bond. When a lot of people reach out to me and they're in a relationship with someone that they think is more dismissive avoidant, it's interesting when I have to break the news to them that that other person may most likely be a fearful avoidant based on their history. It's often alarming to them because They've done so much research on all these different type of attachment styles, but they miss a few key things when it comes to the dynamics between a dismissive avoidant and a fearful avoidant. They miss that the background with the dismissive avoidant is more neglect, and avoidants are pretty calm. But when it comes to a fearful avoidant, they can be a little bit more volatile, and they come from a lot more complex trauma backgrounds. Not to say that dismissive avoidants are completely calm all the time, because they can have blow-ups and moments of volatility. But if it's something that happens frequently and you just see this dysregulation within a person, I usually lean more towards that fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment. So when it comes to the fearful and the dismissive avoidant, why does it feel so good? Why does this connection feel so connecting? Despite all the chaos, this relationship feels important because in a way it's familiar. Both the FA and DA they're reenacting old emotional patterns from their childhood. This is what feels so familiar about their dynamic. The fearful avoidant may have learned to chase emotional unavailability from their caregivers, and now they're doing it again in their relationships. And the dismissive may have learned that emotions are unsafe, and now they're doubling down and avoiding when things get too tough in that relationship. But this is the dance, right? This is what we do. Each person is trying to heal through the other person, but they're doing this unconsciously because 95% of the things that we do is subconscious. And without the awareness and the growth, that healing, it just doesn't happen. Instead, the pattern just gets a little bit deeper and prolonged. Now, I know the big question that everyone has is, what's the point of any of this? Can a relationship with a fearful avoidant and a dismissive avoidant even work? Can this dynamic even be something that's even remotely possible? And the answer I have for that is, in my opinion, yes, but it's rare. It's not impossible, but it's rare, because for this to become a healthy, sustainable connection, both people have to do some deep emotional work. The fearful avoidant is the most likely to reach out and try to find someone to help them, and the dismissive avoidant, I usually just don't see it. The fearful avoidant has to stop chasing their emotional safety outside of themselves. They have to learn to self-regulate. They have to communicate with clarity instead of panicking, and stop abandoning themselves to keep someone else. And that's the key one. The dismissive avoidant has to lean into that discomfort that they feel. They have to get curious about their emotional shutdowns. They have to realize that connection doesn't mean losing control over themselves. It means allowing themselves to be seen, which is very scary for them. See, most relationships like this don't last because the love, it isn't real. And I hate to say it, but it's true, because the healing hasn't happened yet. What it is, once again, it's that trauma bond connection that can feel like something that's very irreplaceable. But as you get further away after a breakup, you start to realize that, there were some things that were definitely off in that relationship. If you're someone that's currently in one of these type of dynamics, where you're trying to recover from one, here's what you need to do. The first thing is, I want you to stop trying to fix the other person. You can't pull someone into emotional maturity. It's just something that has to happen on their own journey. You can only work on yourself throughout this process. If you're the fearful avoidant, it's important for you to learn to pause before you react, because usually you do something or you say something that you regret later on. The second thing is, I want you to build a support system that doesn't revolve around the relationship. When you have this soulmate type of experience with someone, you tend to feel like they should be your everything. When it's not healthy, you need someone that's objective, someone that can actually tell you when you're wrong. Like, I think those are good friends. And also, I want you to notice when you're confusing chaos with chemistry. Just because it's bringing these deep emotions and these emotional highs and lows, it doesn't mean that you have chemistry with someone. It could just mean that your nervous system is so used to this that it feels normal. If you're the dismissive avoidant, I want you to start paying attention to your avoidance strategies if you can. If you're self-aware avoidant, you will understand when you're shutting down. You understand when you're starting to ghost someone, or when you're feeling like ghosting someone. And you'll start realizing when you're dismissing your own emotions. The second thing you can do is practice small moments of vulnerability, because unfortunately, avoidants tend to have these emotional, vulnerable times, but then they regret it because it was a little bit too much. But if you dose it out, do things on your own pace slowly, it makes it less regrettable once you do share something. And the third thing I want you to remember is, connection doesn't mean you're giving up yourself. That doesn't mean that you're abandoning yourself. So in closing, if you're someone that is no longer with them, but you still feel like you're hooked, like a trauma bond, that pain, it feels personal, but it's actually primal. It's your nervous system trying to solve something unfinished. And this is why you dream about them. This is why you get dysregulated if you feel like you've seen them in person or you cross paths with them. But I want you to remember that closure doesn't always come from the other person. Sometimes it has to come from you, because the fearful avoidant can absolutely hook the dismissive avoidant, but it's usually not through security. It's through shared universal patterns. What feels like chemistry is often just trauma trying to resolve itself, really. But if you want a real connection, one that's built on peace and not pain, it starts with healing your own attachment system. When you become secure, you actually stop mistaking unpredictability for passion. You stop chasing people who can't give you what you need. And this is actually what a healthy mind does, what a secure mind does. You start attracting partners who can meet you where you are. So if you found this video of any value, please like, comment, and share. You can also download my secure attachment guide, and it's linked on my website. You can reach out to me on my other social media accounts. Instagram is I am Coach Court. TikTok is I.am.coachcourt. My website is www.fruitfulseeds.com. And always remember, when you go be loved, you'll never have to find it. God bless.